Hi everyone, my name is Tori, this is Novel Life, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I have some enemies to lovers romance recommendations, and this is specifically for fantasy romance. I am actually very excited to chat about these books. I have a stack of books next to me, and I truly mean a stack of books. I have about 10 recommendations to share with you. Some of these are new, some of these are old, some of these for me are just oldies but goldies that I love and that I actually really want to reread sometime soon. So this is for romantasy, fantasy romance, all of that. Now for my contemporary romance lovers, I will have a separate video where I chat about enemies to lovers, contemporary romances. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and dive into some romantasy, enemies to lovers recommendations. The first one I have is actually an oldie, and it's one that I mentioned in my romantasy reader book tag, and that is A Heart of Blood and Ashes by Bane. So this is technically the first book in the Gathering of Dragons series, and I do have the mass market. I don't know if they even make this mass market anymore. I don't know if they have like a trad book or if it's the same cover, but I loved this book. Now, when I tell you, I feel like this book was made for me, and I read it pretty early on in my romantasy reader journey. But if you love like the Viking kind of setting of fantasy romances, I should say, but you also love a super strong female character, you also love a super strong hero, but like she's strong mentally, he's strong physically, and they actually really complement each other once they get over the enemies part. But this is like a true enemies to lovers. Like, he believes that she is the reason why his parents are dead. She actually killed them. Like, he truly believes that. So he goes to find her and realizes that she's actually been in a world of hell by herself, like without him even wanting to get revenge for his parents. And so that brings in another aspect to this book, which is the disability rep. So she had her knee smashed in because she was being tortured, and that knee never healed right, and there's no way to fix that. So she is stuck with this knee that, you know, is at an awkward angle, and it makes her walk with a little bit of a limp. And then she has two fingers that are missing. I love the way that Vane really blended all of the things that I personally love in a romantasy. Like, I actually forgot about this book because it's at the very top of my shelf. I have a lot of mass markets up there, but this one is so good. If you want just a really good enemies to lovers fantasy romance, definitely check this one out. It has a very interesting world building. There's the second book, and that's more of like a friends to lovers kind of a thing, but I really love this one. I really love this book so much. I want to reread it. Another one is an oldie but a goldie, and it is a standalone, and that is The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levenseller. So Trisha Levenseller basically writes more YA-ish romantasy, and I will say that this kind of like toes the line between like new adult and adult, if that makes sense. Like, our female character she is something else, let me tell you. I think the first line of this book is one that I will never forget because it is so just like wild and out there. So it says, the first sentence, chapter 1, they've never found the body of the first and only boy who broke my heart, and they never will. Like, if that doesn't show what kind of female character she is, yeah. It's more enemies to lovers, but they dislike each other kind of a thing. He is like this well-known prince, and she kind of has to infiltrate the kingdom and kind of like make him fall in love. It's been a little while since I read this book, but I remember really enjoying it. And for a complete standalone romantasy, we don't always get those very often. This is a complete standalone romantasy, and it leans more into like the historical aspects. So like there's dukes and there's all this type of stuff like that. So it kind of leans more into the like historical romantasy, but I personally enjoy that. I don't mind it. So yeah, like I said, I don't always like Trisha Levenseller stuff because it is more YA, but this one kind of like toes the line between like new adult and new adult, and I didn't mind it. So definitely check out this one. Another book that actually just re-released here in the United States, traditionally published wise, Heavenly Bodies by Imani Iru. So I loved this book. I read the indie version 2023. And I fell in love with this book. It is more than just a normal romantasy. It is everything. Now, our female character, you see that she escapes her kingdom after it's being raided, and she kind of seeks refuge in a nearby kingdom, but it's kind of like they're rivals, obviously, but they take her in, and is like, that's fine. She doesn't really have her magic. She doesn't really use her magic that well. And she's like, oh, if the king is basically like, oh, if you stay in our kingdom, you have to train with my son. And it's something with their magic that instead of just possessing one or two powers, they possess like two or three. It's something like that. Like, not everyone has multiple layers of magic. And he realizes that she does. And so he's like, oh, maybe because she's taking refuge here, I can give her that training. And then she'll still be on my side because she'll be powerful. It's one of those things, and I really love it. I love this so much. So it's a little bit enemies at the beginning because he's like, ugh, I don't like her, but it changes. And once it changes, oh my God, I love it so much. I do have the second book, which is technically called Fallen Stars. That's the indie version. I don't know what the second book is actually going to be called traditionally published wise, but I want to reread this before the second book comes out because I remember really loving this. This is my third edition I have. This is the new traditionally published with the sprayed edges from Barnes & Noble, and it has like beautiful artwork. Ugh, I love this book so much. Definitely pick up this one. Now, this one is a little bit different of an enemies to lovers because she literally hates everyone, and that is Blood of Hercules by Jasmine Mass. So yes, this is a why choose book. Technically, yes, it's why choose. But I will say, as someone who doesn't always enjoy why choose, like it's hit or miss for me, I feel like this worked really well for me because our female character, you see that she is living in the human world, but it comes to find out that she takes this test and she does have magical powers, and she is sent to like where the gods are, and she goes through all these trials, yada, 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 right? And you see that there's two separate guys. There's two over here, two over here. Two guys over here are kind of like these mercenary guys. Achilles and Patroclus are two. And the other two are, oh my God, why can't I think of their name? I literally just read this book. Oh, Maximus and Ares, I think it is. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, there's four guys total. And I think that's then the next books in the series that'll explore that why choose more. But in here, the romance is very, 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 very light. Up until like the last couple of chapters, there's not really a huge romance. You just see that she has a interest in the guys, do you know what I mean? And I find that interesting. Like, I actually really enjoyed this because it focused more on like the fantasy world and her and what's going on with her. So it's like an introduction, but she doesn't like any of the guys. She's like, I don't like any of you. I think you're all assholes and I just want nothing to do with you. And then a situation kind of happens at the end of the book and she's kind of stuck with two of them. That's all I'll say. But I did really, really enjoy this book. I was actually thoroughly surprised that I enjoyed it. I listened to the audiobook and the audiobook was done really, really well. So I would highly give this a try if you're interested in why choose, but you're not like the biggest fan of it like I am. Definitely check this one out. Another book I have is one that I actually just read. Well, I finished the last two books in the series, and that is Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Rorick. So I don't have the first book in the series. I have the second and the third book, and the fourth book comes out in August. But this is the cover of the first book. I'm getting a special edition at a Polycon, so I didn't want to have physical like indie paperback, but then I'm like, well, I might as well get the indie paperback because I want to reread it anyway. You know, reader problems. Anyway, this series is absolutely amazing. 10 out of 10 would recommend, okay? I had the best time. I read books 2 and 3 in a reading vlog recently where I caught up on series that I was in the middle of, and I was not mad. Now, I did read the first book, Reign of Shadows and Endings, at the end of 2024, and I gave it 4 stars. I was like, there was so much back and forth between our hero. He's like, just give into this bond, just give into it. And she's like, I literally can't. And in my head, I'm like, girl, just give into the bond. Now, this is a dark-ish romantasy, so if you love dark romance, this series is for you for sure. But I have an appreciation for the first book after reading books 2 and 3, now that I see what the author was trying to do and like how she kind of played things out. Now, our female character, she does not like Theon. She like sees Theon at the beginning of the first book and she doesn't really know who he is, but when she finds out who he is and what he's done, he's chosen her as his source, which in this world, sources directly like feed their powers to legacy, which is like a step higher, even though they're very similar with their powers and stuff like that. So now she's stuck with him and is supposed to like take on these source bonds, and there's 4. And by the end of the third book, she's gotten the third one. So that's all I'll say. But there's definitely a big cliffhanger. I cannot wait for the 4th book coming out later this year. But if you want a series that will be completed this year, definitely check out this one because it definitely has that enemies to lovers vibe. Our female character, Tessa, she literally pushes Theon to his limits at every single point in this book. And then you have Luca, who is his best friend, that is there kind of as like obviously his friend, but she starts to like lean on him a little bit too. So it's a very interesting dynamic and I love it so much. I cannot wait for the 4th book, but this is one that I would recommend to a lot of people. The next one I have is House of Bane and Blood by Alexis L. Minard. I mean, the title says it all. Bane and Blood, they are legit rivals. This kind of reminds me of like not Romeo and Juliet, but like literally just rival families, and they just are supposed to hate each other, but they actually really like each other, if that makes sense. So you see at the beginning of the book, our female character, she meets this guy in a bar, they kind of hit it off, they have a night where they chit chat, then she goes back to her house and she's finding out that she's being like married off for the sake of her family. her family's in ruin, they don't have any money, yada, yada, yada. And then you see that this other guy comes in and is like, no, just kidding. I'm going to marry her. I'll pay off whatever you were going to do. I want to take her. I want her to be mine. And that's the guy that she had a little thing with the night before, and she didn't know that he was part of a rival family. And I love this. I had the best time reading it. This is not going to be for everyone, but I will say if you like, a lot of people say this is Peaky Blinders, but make it fantasy and romantasy. I kind of get that. They dress like Peaky Blinders, which I love Peaky Blinders, one of my all-time favorite TV shows, okay? But I will say that this is more steampunk vibe. It definitely mixes magic, romantasy, powers, that kind of thing with some tech, and I find that interesting. So like I said, it's not going to be for everyone because of that aspect. I personally love it, and I do have the second book on my Kindle. I want to read it. I think it's a completed duology. So both books are out, but I really loved it. I listened to the audiobook, and I really love the narrator. So this is another one that it's like enemies to lovers because they're rival families, but I really love this one. The next book I have is Slaying the Shadow Prince by Helen Schwarr. So this is technically a book that you can read in the Legends of Thesmar series. I think you read book 1, you read book 2, then you read this book, and then you read book 3, and then you read book 4. I read this after book 3 because you see these characters in there, but this is its own standalone story between Talamir and, oh my god, what is her freaking name? Drew. I couldn't think of her name, but Talamir is the Shadow Prince, and he is, you see his, I don't know how much to say, but you see that he is in the Legends of Thesmar series, and you hear that he's talked about, but no one knows his story. So basically, you learn his story here. I love Drew and Talamir, but let me tell you, she is literally she's going to find him to slay him. That is the whole purpose of this book, and her whole purpose is to like take him down because the Shadow Wraiths are something that is like taking over her part of the kingdom, and you see that Drew is like in charge of that. I don't want to say too much because I'm like trying to read the back of the book, but I can say this. Her family was slain by Shadow Wraiths, so she obviously wants revenge, and she finds that she has to kill Talamir, but Talamir is not what she expected, okay? So it's one of those things where they're supposed to be rivals because of what he is, but you see that love blossoms from there. I love it. I love this one. It was such a good time. I gave this one 4 stars. If you want to read something by Helen Schwarr to see what her writing is and if it's for you, you can read the standalone, and if you like this book, you can go and read the Legends of Thesmar series. She does have another book in the Ashes of Thesmar series, which is a whole separate like spin-off that just came out, which I am reading in March, and I'm very excited for that. This is a complete standalone, so you get their story, get their HEA in this book, and yeah, it's one you should check out. The last book I have is Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. So me and Carrie Maniscalco, I'm on the struggle bus with her, okay? I did not like the Kingdom of the Wicked series. That's too YA for me. This is more adult, and like I said with the Trishan Leverseller series, this is more of like a historical setting at the beginning of the book, so you don't automatically open with a fantasy world. It is just about our female character living her life. She works at this gallery, or she like maintains this gallery, and she's just living her normal human life, okay? And then you go into the fantasy world later in the book, so it was a good balance, so you're not just thrown into everything, and I actually really like this. Now, the second book in this series, I forgot the title of it. I already unhauled it. It did not work for me, so I don't know how many books I'm going to read in this series, but you can read this as a complete standalone. This is Envy's book, King of Envy. I think it's Envy. Yeah. Envy is one of the 7 deadly sins, and you see that he has a kingdom that he rules and all of the stuff. And all of the 7 deadly sins, all of like the kings, they all kind of have to work together. And I found that interesting because you do get that in here. And it can be kind of confusing, but because it's thick, but I actually like the way that she wrote this. Like it was still confusing, but like it was enjoyably confusing. I think that's how she was supposed to write it. So I may be in the minority of that, but I actually really enjoyed this one. So this is another one where she just automatically despises him, and it's kind of light on the enemies to lovers, but she pushes him, and she's like, no, I'm not going to fall into your trap. I'm not going to be with you. I'm not going to do this, blah, blah, blah. So I did enjoy this one. So those are all my enemies to lovers romantasy book recommendations that I have to share with you. I really hope you enjoyed this. I don't think I've ever done like a true trope specific romantasy rec video before. So if you want to see like a different kind of rec video just for romantasy, let me know in the comments down below. I would love to do a video for that, whatever idea you have. But if you've made it this far, leave me the scales emoji, you know, like the Libra sign with the 2 scales. Leave me that in the comments down below, because I was looking at Heavenly Bodies, and that is big in that book, I will say. So that's a little tidbit clue, because that's one of my favorites. But thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content for me. As always, I hope you're living a novel life, and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys.